Good evening, y'all. Demon Phil, Comics and More, New Jersey. Got another great interview for you this evening. Definitely been looking forward to this for quite some time, and we're going to be getting into that here very shortly. As everyone knows, if you will, please let me know that you can see and hear me in the comments, and then please share this out. Let's get ahead and get this out as much as we possibly can. Remember, you can go to the Facebook for Comics and More New Jersey, or you can go to the YouTube Comics and More New Jersey as well. And keep in mind, we're like 35 followers away from the 1,000 mark on YouTube. So that would be great to be able to get close enough to hit that. Russell's in here. Thank you, Russell. Appreciate you being here. Steph, welcome to the show. Yeah, please, let's get this shared out. We'll be ready to go in about 1 more minute. Just got a few shares we're working on our end over here. Hope everyone's had a great day, been very productive in what they're doing, and had some fun out there. Yeah, I know, Steph. Yeah, I had to invite everybody in here. I couldn't tell anybody no. David, welcome to the show. Appreciate you being here. Hey, Scott, welcome to the show. Appreciate everybody being here. Lewis, looks like we had a full boat going on today. This is going to be fun. All right. All right, let me go ahead and I'm going to pull the banner. We'll go ahead and go through. I'm going to go ahead and thank my sponsors on this. And then we're going to bring the man of the hour up here. So give me just a moment, get out of here. All right. Demon Phil, Comics and More, New Jersey, and I have got a great interview tonight. As always, I'd like to go ahead and thank my sponsors first. First off, we're going to start with Sub-Zero Mission. As everyone knows, this is a huge one for me because this is one that actually saves lives. They actually go out in their area to go ahead and find the homeless vets that are out there and make sure they have the tools they need to go ahead and survive each winter season. If you don't know enough about this, please reach out to me, find out more about it, find out what you can do to help, and I'll be glad to give you all the information you could possibly want about that. Next up, we've got Totally Rad Comics, which has got Totally Rad Life of Violet, which comes out June the 16th. We have Codex Entertainment, which is Lily the Demoness #4. That comes out in July. We got Third Empire Banner, which has got Mojo Rising, which releases on Tuesday of next week. Get your mojo on. We got 183 Degree Studios. That is Kara Nicole and Alfred Trilio. That is Confessions of a Cosplay Diva, which is going on right now. If you haven't gotten on there, you definitely need to go check that out. And then we have got Comic Art Groupies, which is Wendy Steen Shaner, which has got Naughty Fairies #4, which is coming out, I believe, the end of next month. So we've gone through our sponsors on this, and as you all know, I've got a little detail up to the top of the screen up here, which let me make sure I get there we go. See that right there? There's a reason for that up there. Do you see the apparel and everything? This is my regular stuff I wear whenever I'm always out here and everything. I have been looking forward to this. This is one of those times whenever you get somebody in here that it's like a pivotal moment in what you do. So without further ado, I'm going to make this about him. Here he is right here, the Arch Fiend.
Greetings, Demon Phil.
Brian, thank you so much for being here, buddy.
Pleasure is mine, man. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say this. I can't even believe I'm saying this out loud, but I said this for every single guest. For those of you that don't know who this is, Brian, if you'll tell us who you are, what you do, and how to find you.
Sure. My name is Brian Pulido. I'm a comic book creator, probably most known for the character Lady Death. I've done a myriad of things. I'm the publisher of Coffin Comics. I'm the former publisher of Chaos Comics. I've had the privilege of making comics for over 28 years. Besides writing about 600 comics, I've also published comics starring characters from the WWE, the band Megadeth, Static X, Insane Clown Posse. I've published Halloween, stories are there. I've actually written Nightmare on Elm Street, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Friday the 13th, Chucky, and others. So I've been a comics guy for a really long time, also a long-time comic book collector. I think I traced it back, and I formally began my comic book collection in July of 1974. And I guess what people are most knowing me for the last 5 years is really jumping on the world of crowdfunding and going after it like a maniac. So that's a little introduction of who I am and what I'm about.
And that is taking it lightly about going at it like a maniac, but we'll be talking about that here shortly as well. Now, I want to go ahead and kind of jump into some questions that I've got on here and some things that you can kind of expound on as we go. The first thing, of course, is, you know, Coffin Comics and everything, and you're creating the Coffin Verse.
Yes.
The Coffin Verse is actually right now, as I know it, is just the 3 characters. If you'll go ahead and explain which they are.
So the main characters that are known at the moment in the Coffin Verse would be the character Lady Death, who appears to be the spine of the universe, and she is a fantasy horror character. Then the next character would be La Muerta, who actually has a Kickstarter going right now for her 6th chapter, and she is a mystical crime street level hero. And then another fantasy character we have is Hell Witch, and that is definitely an R-rated, no holes barred, dark fantasy story. It's as if the 14-year-old boy who used to read heavy metal and creepy and eerie kind of came to life on the page. For those of you who read the books, actually, you can see that the Coffin Verse itself has been expanding rapidly through the pages of Lady Death. And there are a multitude of characters we've introduced that range from Hellslinger, Chaotica, Mujai, the Demon Hunter, recently Johnny Devlin, and others. And it's all part of an expression of mine. I'm a big fan of 70s Marvel anti-heroes like Ghost Rider and Son of Satan, and mystical characters and anti-heroic characters. And this particular story arc that we've actually been leading up to for years and are really expressing next year is sort of my homage, my love of that come to life.
Very nice. Now, I've got to go ahead and bring this up real quick because I'm going to get going through the audience a little bit on this, but there's one up here because I'm going to tell you right now, Russell, it ain't happening. That ain't happening, buddy.
Always on me. I know better. I'm a mark. I invented this, or I took in this premise, the challenge coin. I was inspired by a friend of mine, Eddie Rausch, one of the key personnel over at VetTix, and he gave me one. And it kind of inspired me. I thought it'd be kind of a cool community builder. And for us, it really is. A challenge coin is a real thing, and you actually really challenge people for drinks. And I realized at one point pretty early on, it's like, well, all I do for the rest of my life is make myself a mark. So I carry my coin, and I have doubles, and I'm talking like if I'm walking the dogs in the morning, if I'm hiking, in Sedona, Arizona, no matter what, I have my coin nearby in my pocket.
Like you said, you've kind of put the mark on your back with that, but it's fun to go ahead and have that because it creates that energy that goes around, what you've created with this as well.
It is fun. It's a real community builder. We have a hoot with it for sure. It's fun to go to a place, like our hometown show, Phoenix Fan Fusion, and coin it up, and there's like 70 coins going, so it is fun.
Very nice.
Or Fest, like we did at Fiend Fest, and it's like a billion coins.
Yes. Yeah, I cannot wait for next year. That's going to be huge.
Fest is going to be bananas. Count on it.
So we kind of brought up in the Coffin Verse, Lady Death, Hell Witch. Now you've got someone right there behind you, which is La Muerta,
yes.
Which is kind of, because it's important right now because it's actually on crowdfunding right now as we speak and doing very well.
It is. You bet. Yeah. So La Muerta Retaliation is the 6th chapter and the 6th Kickstarter. And yeah, I guess this Wednesday tonight at 7:00, it'll be the 1-week anniversary of the campaign. And it's really tracking to be the most successful La Muerta campaign so far. As you and I speak right before we got on, I checked and we were at about $88,000, which we consider tremendous, phenomenal. The record on a La Muerta campaign is $105,000 raised. And always happy to say that we put a lot of that money right back into future projects or any kind of improvement in our whole culture. So yeah, people could expect stuff. Yesterday, Phil, we introduced something really neat, which was called,
yes.
This is the sculptured cover. So this one is, I worked in tandem with a gentleman named Jason Fowers, who we have an exclusive business relationship with, and the artist Paolo Pantalena. And we've actually bringing comic book covers to life 3-dimensionally. And although I did this in the 90s through conventional offset printing with a process called sculpture embossed, that really required us to make an actual mold that cost about $10,000. But with the advent of 3-dimensional printing, we're actually able to bring Paolo's phenomenal work to life. And this particular edition will be randomly tipped in throughout all physical reward tiers. But 2 will be tipped into the legend tier, 2 will be tipped into the Mega Baller tier, 2 to the High Roller tier, 1 to the Mystery Envelope, and then 3 will be distributed randomly throughout the balance of the campaign, available to any physical backer of the La Muerta Retaliation #6 campaign.
And didn't I see correctly on the video that you had yesterday, whenever you were talking to the gentleman who was helping to create all of this with you on this, that you had gone to great lengths to make sure that this actually could be graded as well?
Yeah, it's gradable. So we did. This is the result. Now, obviously, this is just the cover itself. It hasn't been yet affixed to the comic, but we really have gone through great lengths and iterations. Behind the scenes, this is actually the accumulation of about 7 months of R&D. And there may or may not have been other things that we've been doing behind the scenes that people will see. But yeah, we have a test slab. Do I have it nearby? I even have the test slab. Yeah, I think I could show you. Let's see here. It's nearby. Bear with me here.
Oh,
yeah, so we actually broke a slab down a little bit, and we would do a series of tests to see if it could actually work. So a comic book would actually be encased in something like yet another plastic bag. It would go here, and then the actual graded book. Let me see if I can do it this way here. We popped in here. This is 48-page square bound, but it will make it.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. Fun project. You know, it was easy, Phil, to make it a lot non-gradable, very three-dimensional. We kind of knew that people would like that option. So honestly, that's where the most amount of work came, is how do you make it thin enough to be gradable and to be affixed to a 48-page square bound comic book.
Exactly. And that does make sense, because it's one of those things that whenever, if I was lucky enough to get that, I would want that thing to be slabbed in a heartbeat, because you don't want it to get messed up. I mean, there's only 10 of these. I mean, technically 13, but the other 3 are locked away. So yeah, I don't want to get messed up. So that's a great way to go ahead and keep it, is put it slabbed.
Yeah, why not? I mean, you know, people have a lot of opinions on slab, no slab, but you know, hey man, collecting is many things to many people, and just having at least that option available to people to be able to slab if they want to, we thought that would be kind of cool.
Now, what I would like to do today is kind of we're going to do something a little unorthodox than your normal thing. Instead of finding out who you are and what you've done throughout the business time and everything, we're actually going to delve into nowadays what you've done and how things are working and all. What I would like to start off with is something that you do every time you have a video, which is you talk about your Coffin Comics mission statement and promise.
Yes.
And I have done some research on this. I actually printed out one so I could actually have one of my own to go ahead and kind of over. So the mission statement, we create fun, happiness, and excitement. Very simple. And if you'll go ahead and just kind of expand on why you decided to go ahead and have that as your opening statement on this.
Well, I mean, I kind of, you know, there comes a point when you do stuff where you kind of ask, what is the real reason, and what is the real, what's your real mission? And somewhere in the late 90s, I actually realized that my job or my mission in life was really to provide fun for people. Now, that doesn't mean I've always been able to do it. And I would say in my former company, ultimately, I wasn't able to do it. But I kind of realized that for me, what excites me is just giving people a little fun. And I look back to things that give me that feeling. And I would say, I remember when I was a kid listening to hard rock in the late 70s, early 80s. I'm listening to Van Halen. It just gave me this experience and feeling like I am part of the party. And that's what we want for Coffin, to provide that to people. And look, a lot of people provide a lot of different things, but fun and excitement guides our every step. Now, we have to qualify it. That is all in the domain of rock and roll inspired supernatural comics. So you got to get into that stuff. So clearly we're not for everybody, but for the people who get it, they get it. Like really, if you're looking for just a simple, fun, good time, that's our mission. And the reason why the photo you sent is actually one of the posters that we have up on our wall in several places, and that's a reminder. So for us as a company, that's who we want to be for people out in the world. But that is also who we want to be for each other. So it's not as if we're providing that out into the world and then behind the scenes we're actually like, you know, mean and cruel or whatever. We're not. We endeavor to do that. And look, we're human beings, so we're not perfect, but it's the guiding principle. And I actually find too, at least for myself, quality of life is better if your objective is to have fun and excitement. It's a better work environment for people. And I just noticed, like, let's take, for example, my appearances at conventions or something like Fiend Fest. Just having an objective of being fun and exciting as a touchstone is a perpetual reminder of everything that we do, and everything underneath is informed by that decision. So it's a great guide. You know, look, if you were on a boat and you were charting a course across the world, you would have the latitudes and longitudes figured out. And so I would assert, you know, as a builder, you'd want to do the same thing. And so the latitude and longitude that Coffin Comics is always heading for is fun and excitement.
And that's great that you have that. And I agree with it being at the top of that, you know, that poster and having your mission statement right there so that your reminder is there. But now that I want to touch on is the core values, because those really stuck out to me, because too many people kind of go for money needs to be at the core value at the top. And that's not even on your list.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, money is never the objective.
So you've got happiness. That's kind of a no-brainer on there. Teamwork. You can definitely see where there's a lot of teamwork involved. I mean, you show video after video of things going on whenever you're doing fulfillments, and you're talking about thousands of backers that are on these things whenever they go off, and people should be upset with each other, stepping all over each other, and they're not. They're actually having a blast.
No, I mean, you know, Phil, speaking to that teamwork, I mean, we kind of relate to ourselves like a sports team. We're playing the playoffs or the championship season, and our craft is an expression of who we are. So yeah, to be badass in the area of fulfillment, makes us feel good.
And the next one that is on here is respect. That's one that a lot of people lose sight of, and you never have, actually. And there's something I want to bring up about that. If you'll go ahead and talk about what respect means to you on your end.
I think I'd like to at least attempt to begin every relationship with an extension of respect to people and trying to understand where they're coming from in all walks of life, in all interactions. In another life or another element of what we do, I'm co-owner of Tucson Comic-Con in its 13th year of operation, and actually bring similar values into that place. And I think we all we all have a different life and a different experience. And what I try to do first with everyone is kind of listen to where people are coming from, have a better understanding. And I would like to start everything by at least extending respect. And I saw that as a young person. So, keep in mind, I graduated high school in 1980. And early on, I just sort of realized, I'm like, man, if you start everything from there, it's a more possibly a better platform as a starting point, as opposed to, I don't know, other places, arms crossed, defensive. It's like, well, let me start by, going into this given group of people and, see what's going on there first, and, start by extending respect. And that's just a sort of a broad term, and something I kind of arrived at a young age.
And I completely agree. And whenever you and I had discussed briefly it was like 3 months ago, I guess, whenever we had the online con that we did on the other one, that you were in there as a guest, and I brought up about whenever you got the most of my respect was whenever you were actually doing your closing for, I believe it was Hell Witch or Lady Death. It was one of the two.
Oh yeah, that previous Lady Death, when the COVID thing was starting to blow up, we definitely tamped stuff down.
Yes. So anyone who knows anything about Coffin Comics knows whenever there is a launch or a closing, it's a party. And we didn't hear anything. Yeah, exactly. We didn't hear anything about it.
Party like a pirate. And yeah, we just felt like the thing to do at the time to sort of be, I mean, at that time, it literally hadn't minimally reached Arizona, yet was really starting to become a hot spot in New York City. And it felt inauthentic if we should be partying like rock stars, where people were starting to feel, the first real flare up of this thing that we didn't know much about then. And frankly, we still don't know a heck of a lot yet. So, yeah.
And that's exactly, I mean, that moment right there, and there's a video actually on the Coffin Comic shop that you can go look at over there to see the video where this actually happens. And it's worth it. It will change your perspective on a lot of things. Not necessarily just on Coffin. I'm talking about how humanity should be actually toward one another, but that's a whole different topic.
Different topic. It's funny too. I mean, you're saying stuff like that. And again, I love comics. I've read comics, and my formative years of reading comics is in the 70s. And, for me, the heroes I love, now keep in mind, right? I listen to the most outrageous hard rock, brutal metal, death metal, all that stuff. But look, I put it in the box that it is. It's all stories being told. But anyone who knows me knows I adore Captain America. And I love those simple heroes back then. It's like pretty much black and white, who the good guy and the bad guy was. And, I love who I think that character was, particularly at that time. So it only makes sense that, I kind of see what I can do to emulate it. And I'm a human being, so I'm not perfect. There's, I'm not hitting Captain America marks, but we're striving in that direction.
And you definitely are. I mean, I could not agree more on that. And the last three that are on here are accountability, integrity, which is huge, and innovation. And the point that I wanted to make on going over all this is there is no time that you have any kind of project going on that you're not actually touching on every one of these 6 values every single time.
Well, we give it a try. I mean, we're not perfect. And the values are something, they're possibilities. They're something that we ascribe to. And I in no way, shape, or form hold out those particular values as any kind of dogma. We just sort of collectively sort of thought that these values to aspire to would produce a very good result for our company. I mean, and it would make it more pleasant for us. I mean, generally speaking, at HQ, you walk in and like right now today, people are in the process of labeling 2,600 packages. But I think if you walked in there, you'd see people are laughing, having a good time. And I think it's, for sure it's hard work, but it's like, we're not experiencing it as hard, and we're experiencing as, well, hey, it's what we all signed up for. Let's have a good time doing it.
And it definitely pays off in the end, because not only the monetary value on there, but the family that you've created off of this as well.
Yeah, and Phil, none of this is cynical. None of it. I mean, outside of trying to be that objective of fun and exciting, and trying to be reasonably accountable to everything, we're just kind of mainly doing our thing. We're not really even holding ourselves out as any example. It's just wake up every day, work hard. Again, work like a captain and party like a pirate.
Now, we've had a lot of people that have asked the question, and I'm sure you get it all the time, is what do you do differently with your crowdfunding? What makes you the king of crowdfunding? Yes, exactly.
I think I'm going to give you the answer, and it's really the answer, but it'll sound abstract to people, but it's really the answer. So the first thing is, for you as a project creator, it's like, what are you doing it for? I believe that you really got to set your intention. And again, we do it for fun. We're for creating fun and excitement in people's lives. I mean, I think ultimately, Phil, I do dark subject matter, and I realize that, ultimately, life is tough, and no one gets out of here alive. So my attitude is, in the meantime, let's create a little pleasantry for people in the meantime. So I believe that figuring out why you're doing something contextually is super important and gets to guide things. And then if I had to hazard a guess, I think the next critical component is trust. You develop trust with people, and trust is hard to attain and hard to retain. But for everyone in our company, really try to be available to people. If they have customer service issues or they want to talk about stuff. I mean, sometimes it's tiring, but the truth is we want to be kind of transparent, because we really, to attain the objective, we got to. Look, if you want to be fun and excitement, but you're not creating a good customer service experience, you got to put yourself out there, see if you could turn that back into a positive. So I think trust might help, because on this current La Muerte campaign, we're on our 20th campaign, and we're transparent. So if there is something that's messing up the works, we're going to tell people as soon as we possibly can. But we're going to be doing everything in our power behind the scenes to make it appear as seamless as humanly possible, so we're not going to that well all the time. So, over the course of 20 campaigns, I think we've only had to say, we promised our ship date once. And that was, there's a story behind that. In our last Hell Witch campaign, we were with our printer, who we'd printed 6 projects before. We're at the printer, and they got to a page, and they're like, an employee complained, and they called us up, and they said, look, we can't print this. It's like, if you change it, we'll print it. I got on the other line. I'm like, oh, you're asking me to change the work? And I said, I can't do that. And I said, thank you very much. I respectfully decline. We got to move on. But that left us in a lurch. So that meant like getting a brand new printer, la-di-da. And I am happy that when I finally conferred with our president, Francisca Pulido, and said, sorry, I said that we wouldn't do this, but you understand the impact. She was like, 100%, no one's going to tell us what to do. So that's what we did. And we got in communication as soon as we locked in the new printer and let people know that although we were going to ship it in January, it will be March, because we actually had to go right back to the beginning of the process. But other than that, and now we know to always ask. We have a new printing relationship, and we just laid it all out. It's like, okay, look, we could have sex in this thing. We could have violence in this thing. Here's some examples. Do you have a problem with this? Tell us now, or else, because this is where we're headed. And thankfully, that new printing relationship is fine with the content. So trust. So I think, knowing what you stand for, and then trust. So under, like, if trust is the heading, underneath it would be things like transparency, being in communication, great quality customer service, not taking things personally, just relating to everybody, again, in a respectful manner. I think all those types of things serve that premise of trust.
And it's great that you say that, because I was actually looking on, a few things and kind of doing some research before the interview, because I don't like coming in not knowing things. And there was a quote that was on here that was actually, you embrace the outlaw spirit.
Yep.
And what I wanted to bring up about that is you actually still embrace that outlaw spirit, but you still embrace the values. And that is huge that you actually do that.
Well, okay, cool. Thanks. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, Phil, like early on in my career, I've worked for other companies. I did a series at Dark Horse. I actually did something for Marvel, but I sort of concluded that, like, I'm a wild stallion, man. It's hard to like pin me down. Serving another master is super difficult for me. So I just got to go my own way. So I know that about myself. And if people, in our group, if they want to be part of that and, serve this greater cause of the coffin thing, great, come on down. But yeah, as far as like signing up and like, having someone else be in charge, inevitably it doesn't go right. So hence the outlaw, because there's a multitude of examples where the rubber hit the road, we had to go our own way. And, again, like it's that printing relationship. It was like, oh, wait a minute. You think that because one of your employees complained that we're going to kowtow to that, in the land of the free, home of the brave? That's not going to happen. So we got to move on.
And you've also shown, like, I know there've been some instances where you've kind of jokingly said that you've been in the bad boy corner of some of the other cons and whatnot.
Without a
and
doubt.
You just laugh about it because you're like, you know what? I've got my own place wherever I want to be type thing. I don't have to be in the bad boy corner.
It mystifies me. I mean, yeah, we get these bad boy corner placements, and yet still, because we're blessed by the sworn and fiends that, our lines are crazy. I think sometimes, some of these events are like, well, we got to put this guy in the corner, maybe because of content. I don't really know. I mean, usually when people get to know us, they want to hang out, they want to have a beer. But if they don't, they might just see like, oh my God, these guys are like the comic book equivalent of bikers. What's going on here? So we accept it. And, I've gotten some of the worst booth placements, like in a corner facing the wall, and it's still bananas for us. So ultimately, I'd rather face the convention and have the opportunity of people who don't know our material get a chance to see it. That's the real opportunity. But if, we put in the corner, we're facing the corner, thankfully, our people do find us. But yeah, what are you going to do? I mean, I try not to get bitter about stuff. Life's too short.
Exactly. Now, you've mentioned a few times about the sworn and the fiends. So I wanted to ask a question of you. What does it mean? What does the sworn nation truly mean to you?
It's an interesting question. It's something that just has risen up without a plan or agenda. So for me, they're the boss. And yet at the same token, I'm an individual creative human being who has very strong feelings about certain things. So it's this incredible community. It's sizable. And the fiends and the whole premise of Sworn Nation, people come from all walks of life. I mean, everyone from like doctor, lawyer, nurse, everybody in between. And it's this wonderful symbiotic relationship. I mean, I think it's important that I guide the ship and that it comes from an authentic place. but by the same token, I'm checking in and making sure that we're kind of fulfilling the mission and people are still satisfied. So it's a wonderful and incredible and immersive experience. It's again, no plan, no agenda, just something that kind of came onto its own. And I can tell you that I'm very grateful, and it fills my day every day. What's going on in the culture? Like, what the heck's going on today? And I'm happy to say too that, based on evidence of meeting people around the world in events like Fiend Fest, that it's just a really good group of people who are out to have a good time, very passionate about their comics and their life. And, we're super grateful that there is such a thing as Sworn Nation. And if you ain't part of it, we encourage you, come on down, be part of it. You will never meet a better group of people to party with.
Not only just to party with, I mean, just whenever they welcome you in, there is no gray area about it. It's either you're in or you're out. But the only way you get out is if you push yourself out. That's it.
Yeah, generally everybody's pretty well behaved. What I also say too is, a lot of us in the culture like edgy stuff, right? And tough stuff. Fans of Pantera, black metal, whatever. And so it can be a tough group. However, what I encourage everybody to do, and I think what people have really embraced, is the idea of like brotherhood, companionship, friendship. And I think we tend to put that first, and then we let some of our tougher impulses kind of not guide us. So really letting friendship and camaraderie kind of lead the way. So that's been really gratifying, particularly this year.
Now, we've mentioned a few times about Fiend Fest. Now, we know we've got Sworn Fest is coming up next year. If you want to go ahead and talk about that and what we can kind of expect with that, because I know this is going to be my first time going and I cannot wait.
So Sworn Fest happening February 26th, 27th, and 28th of next year in Mesa, Arizona, where we take over Building B of the Mesa Convention Center, is an all-out, completely immersive experience of everything that is Coffin and the work that I'm associated with, including the Chaos Days. Now, Friday night, we have a mixer, just a party. Everybody gets to meet each other. Actually do encourage everybody to turn to their left or right, put their hand out and say hello to someone they don't know. Friendships are made, bonds are formed. And then Saturday and Sunday, all day, it's madness. So we have Coffin-centric creators in attendance with all their goodies. Coffin Comics has a lot of cool exclusive goodies. We run panels. We run a trading post where people could bring their stuff for trade, kind of sign up ahead of time. We have a lot of surprises where we do things on the spot. They are pre-planned, but people don't know they're going to happen. Saturday night of this particular Sworn Fest, we're going to have a rock and roll karaoke night. So we'll be partying from about 9 to 1 o'clock or whatever last call is going to be. I think on last call, we're all going to sing Bohemian Rhapsody. But, hundreds of people doing it at the same time. Simultaneous to that, we actually give guided tours of HQ, which is the Coffin Comics Global Headquarters. And people got to tour version 1 last year, and I'm in the process of updating it to version 2. And what that means is people could expect a lot of new decor, new items in the Pulido archive, and a lot of cool cosmetic changes. Because I view HQ as a perpetual project. It'll always be improved. And so the other things that people could expect is bars open at noon. We serve coffee free, water. We encourage people to buy, sell, trade. A lot of friendship and camaraderie, I think, is what people can expect. I'm sure I'm tipping the iceberg, but we've already announced that we're bringing in Diego Bernard from Brazil. Mm-hmm. We're bringing in veteran letterer Marshall Dillon. And we actually have our next guest announcements this Friday on coffincomics.com. And we'll keep having announcements. And we have some significant historical announcements coming up in the next 3 months as well. So that's just a little taste of what it's like. And we do invite everybody to come on out to, if you go to coffincomics.com, you'll see a little graphic, and click on it, and it gives you like a whole roll down, shows you video, all that kind of stuff of what you could expect. And people literally come from around the world. People came as far as France, Australia, throughout the United States of America, Canada, UK, et cetera, et cetera. So it's more fun than should be legal.
What happens in Swornfest stays in Swornfest.
I think most people find that it's like kind of what you'd expect, a lot of boozing, it's like good times and boozing and comic nerding out and, et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of what you'd expect. But I mean, the thing to clarify for people is we don't have exhibitors like a convention, nothing like that. It's all just guests and everything's coffin centric. There's no, people sometimes get in contact, say, hey, I want to exhibit. It's like, yeah, that's not what it's about. But if you want to buy a ticket and party with us, that's cool. I mean, yeah. It appears to be completely satisfactory to people that it's that way. It's really like a club event.
Definitely looking forward to that. Now, we keep mentioning about the cons, so I want to go ahead and bring up about, I want to know what your favorite con moment was.
Oh my God. Well, dude, I have 20 years in the game. I mean, one that comes to my mind quickly is somewhere about in 1999, actually officiated Coffin. The Chaos Comics booth was the location for an actual wedding ceremony of the two lovely people down in Florida. That's one that really comes to my mind. There's so many. Yeah, I think that one's pretty cool. Gosh, I can remember. Okay, I got a story for you. This is true. So it's 1995. We're at Chicago Comic-Con, the equivalent of the Bad Boy Corner, no jokes. So this show at the time was in Rosemont, Chicago, good-sized hall. But Chaos Comics is blown up. Myself, Stephen Hughes, Jason Jensen lined up. We're signing books. No joke, our line goes around the entire arena. It's crazy, and it goes right in front of Marvel. So we're signing, no let up in sights, crazy, Rockstar days, bananas, crazy. And some representative from Marvel comes over and says, you guys are going to have to change your line. And I did say this without a beat, young guy, forgive me. I said, when you get a line like we have, you can tell us where the line goes. Until then, you got to go back to your booth. So young, obnoxious, different time, but that is a true story. I don't think I'd do something like that now, older, wiser, but, young and cocky, top of the world. We were just like taking no prisoners back then.
Yeah, but I mean, if you can back up cocky, then cocky's okay to do, because you can definitely back that up with what you got over there.
Back then, yeah, you bet.
Yeah, I mean, and now even too, I mean, you've actually built something that is not, people don't look at it as just a comic book. They look at it as a brand, a franchise, a family. I mean, there's a lot more words that go along with Coffin than just going with just a comic book, which is amazing.
It is amazing. Yeah, we're humbled by it. I mean, for sure, it's a way of life. It's completely immersive, absolutely, for everybody involved on all elements of it.
Now, what was your favorite fan experience that you've had?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. How could I pick one? In what happens too is like people begin as fans, or I haven't met them and then become my friends or brothers or sisters. And I guess you asked me that question, one that popped into my mind. I was at Denver Comic-Con year 2, and a guy comes up, and it's really his story to tell, but he told me a story about how being able to read Lady Death at a certain time in his life actually really, really helped him get past an addiction. And it was a life or death experience for him. It was the difference between like being a father and a family man, or just kind of losing it all. And that guy is a guy named Josh Grimsley. And, he definitely went from being a fan to being, a brother. So he's definitely my brother. So, I mean, there are so many stories like that. There's stories where, and here's the opposite story. So mid-90s, I'm writing Evil Ernie back in the day, having a great time. And I get a letter from some principal, and he had confiscated a bunch of Evil Ernie comics for some high schooler. And he wrote me this wonderful, intimate letter about how, and it was well written, but it was how I must have some sort of mental illness for making these kinds of comic books and getting them in people's hands. And I've always kept that one. I think we changed things out in the Pulido archive, and I think I'm going to resurrect that note that explained in great detail how I must be a mental degenerate for writing that story, and I'll put it out there for people's display. So there you have a positive fan experience, and then like a crazy principal experience.
That is great.
Yeah, that's great. There's so many. I mean, dude, there's so many. Another one was just with the advent of social and becoming friends with people in groups and being active in groups. I'm active in a group called the Collector's Corner. It's guys and gals who just dig comic books, and it was really unbeknownst to me, like a lot of the admins and a lot of the prominent folks there were just all about Chaos Comics, and started getting into Coffin, and it was really gratifying meeting about 15 of those guys and gals in person at the last Fiend Fest, because no matter how many conventions you get to, you don't meet everybody. And that was really neat, because it was an interesting experience, because on one hand, I felt like I knew those folks, but now here they were. So it was great. It was like, man, it was cutting through all the mustard. It was like, we could hug right off the bat. It's like, man, I'm so happy to meet you. I feel like I know you. And yeah, that's another one. I mean, the list can go on for days. The experiences have been incredible. I could go on. I mean, I could tell you like hundreds of personal experiences in friendships that were forged, and it goes on and on.
But that's great that you're able to have where it's not just a foundation for a business, it's a foundation for, like we've said many times, for a family. I mean, this is more of a family than it is anything else, as far as what most of the fans are thinking of with it.
I guess, like in my primitive way of doing things, back in the day when I formed Chaos, and more recently when I formed Coffin, in my mind, we're a band, and we got to go around the world, and we got to go to cons, and we got to do the road work. We got to meet people and expand our base, because of course, on the business element, things like capital are the engines to bring dreams true. Clearly something like HQ could never exist without the capital sufficient to do it. And so all that road work and stuff seems to just make perfect sense. Actually, I don't know where I'm going with it, but okay, I completely lost my train of thought. I admit it. I'm under caffeinated.
Well, because it definitely, whenever you have the fans, and the loyalty is there, then okay, you'll have the capital. That's no problem with that, because every time you launch anything, we're always there for that party, for that hit of that button and everything, to see how fast we can go ahead and have that thing fully funded, which is, it gets interesting.
Yeah, that part is all true. It's a blessing. It's so addictive. We've done 21 crowdfunding campaigns, 20 kicks, 1 Indiegogo, and yeah, when we press that button and then just seeing the numbers go, it's like, I mean, I'm not a gambler, but it kind of has that great feeling.
Well, I think, wasn't it? I think it was the Lady Death one that you launched, and you hadn't had a chance to even refresh the computer, and it was fully funded.
Yeah, that's a weird trend. I mean, we used to be able to see it. Even on this La Muerte, it was like at 0. We hit the launch, and we're all like we're all in different places, right? And it just, just looking at it for about 30 seconds, and then suddenly it was like boom, boom, 1,500, 4,000. So yeah, that's a newer trend where it does. I guess it's getting funded faster than it could kind of read. There was the other one too years ago where we actually pressed the button and it didn't launch, because unbeknownst to us, we made a mistake. We added a product after we got approved, but the date of shipping of that product was not accurate. It was inaccurate, and thankfully, our secret weapon is a guy named Jeff Bang, and he is like a legit high-level, high-security programmer. And we're all like not knowing what's going on. He was able to figure it out in about 16 minutes. We were finally able to launch. He had all figured the whole thing out.
Now, we've kind of talked about innovation and different things with that. I wanted to bring up something, because I want to give a shout out to Jesse Wichman, because he has done something that is just the epitome of innovation so far. And then I want to touch on it after you go ahead and tell everybody what he did in putting Lady Death where hands have never touched before.
That's cool. Well, I was at one time I just said out loud, it's like, we've been everywhere except the Antarctica. And I was like, can someone get us to Antarctica? And then I kind of forgot about it. And then it was really in early March that Jesse behind the scenes revealed to me. And he's like, dude, I just want to let you know, I got Coffin Comics to to the South Pole. And he did. He got 6 copies of his Inferno edition down there to a scientist who took it to the pole. And they wrote the latitude and longitude on there. And I just thought that was sweet. I mean, that's something like that is such an act of generosity by Jesse. I mean, I thought it was so sweet. You know, sometimes it's funny with Jesse because sometimes he's like a little cold and reserved. And sometimes I wonder, I'm like, you know, is everything going good over there? Are we all right? And then he does an act of generosity like that. And I get it. It's like, okay, he just has that tough exterior. But yeah, that was just really lovely because, I mean, it really was a dream come true. And then the bad news was, so soon as that happened, then we said, okay, now we got to get Coffin Comics into space. So
yes,
hoping that maybe we could microtize something on microfiche and, you know, make it catch a ride one time. That'd be the next goal. But yeah, I can't thank Jesse Wichman enough for the generosity and the planning and the sneakiness of getting that done. That was phenomenal.
and see, that's exactly where I wanted to expand, is because unfortunately the launch was scrubbed for today. But I was watching that going, is this a coincidence that I have Brian coming on the show and they're launching today? Did he get Lady Death on that ship?
I wish I did. I was there also. Yeah, I saw the scrub before you and I were doing our microphone check, and I was, if it didn't get scrubbed, I was going to say, hey man, can we do our check a couple minutes later because I got to watch the SpaceX. Dude, I love NASA. I love that whole idea. I think that's everything to do with NASA and getting out in space. Like, call it what you will, but it's aspirational. It reminds me of being a kid, seeing everybody trying to get out there in space and first man landing on the moon. It was just a different time where it was like incredible and very optimistic. So yeah, I'm all about that space mission. Let's go out in space.
Now with Coffin Comics, of course, we got La Muerta going right now. The next one coming up, if I'm not mistaken, is Lady Death in August, correct?
Coming August 5th. I think it's August 5th, is Lady Death, Treacherous Infamy. Yes. And as soon as we ship out Lady Death, Malevolent Decimation, we'll actually do some announces on some of the cover artists, et cetera, et cetera. And for those who are following the storyline, in this year, Lady Death has actually gone back to her evil ways. And as much as Malevolent Decimation is the beginning of that expression, I can tell you conclusively that Treacherous Infamy is bananas. It's just full-blown. Lady Death does some evil stuff that I don't know if there's any coming back from this. Like in the eyes of the people in the universe, like they catch it on film. So I mean, she will definitely be labeled a villain finally and conclusively. And I don't know where we're going to see things go from there, but we also introduced a character named Johnny Devlin. And this is a big battle between the two. It takes place during Mardi Gras. And it's, this one, it's kind of fun, Phil, to write these stories where you go so far out on a limb, then you say to yourself, well, what do I do next year? How do I get out of this? Or given what we've done in this comic book, what the heck, what are the consequences? But all of this actually has been a very specific exploration. And what we're saying, I guess since it's chapter 9, we brought Lady Death to Earth. So it's been 9, 10, 11. And what we're investigating, is she a hero? Is she a villain? What is the nature? And, look, for people outside of Lady Death looking in, they'll be like, oh, there's no story, blah, blah, blah. But, for the people who read it and get it, they do see that it's a rumination on, I guess, persistence and being a human being. And last year, she was labeled a hero in her storyline, quote unquote. And clearly her actions are villainous. And that'll label her clearly a villain. Yet for our storyline next year is so epic, and the villainy is so outrageous. The world is really going to need her help. So how do you take this entity, this supernatural being, who the world is labeled as responsible for like all the world's ills, and then ask for help? And then given what's going on this year with Lady Death, does she even care? So it's one of the fun things about this type of character, or the characters that I like to explore, is making characters barely likable and then from there kind of exploring and trying to have people kind of come along. I mean, clearly Maria Diaz and La Muerta is our quote unquote closest to heroic character probably I've ever been involved with. And we keep her right there. But what her story is about is the cost of the journey for vengeance. What is the cost to your soul? Mm-hmm. Lady Death, different. I mean, I root Lady Death into the world of fantasy through having read things like Robert E. Howard's Conan, and how we look at Conan through different times in his life, a king, a savage, a thief. And with this particular character, she's simply a reflection of interesting themes we like to explore. And in this one, in the last couple of years, is like, what is the nature? What is her real nature? Is she hero? Is she villain? Is she anti-hero? And there isn't an answer to that yet. I mean, we are like neck deep in exploring it.
And we keep kind of going around La Muerta, and I was kind of saving that for last because I actually kind of have an apology to give, because I thought La Muerta was going to be the low end one, because you've always got to have one that's, you know, a lower end comic that you're going to have involved in the series and everything. So I actually got 1 through 5 to get caught up to go ahead and back 6. You've got a huge fan in La Muerta right here.
Thank you.
Because the storyline is not laxed. So anybody who is out there in the audience or will be watching this later or anything, if you think La Muerta is a lower grade, it is not. It is on par with Lady Death, with Hell Witch, with everything else that's up there, and you definitely need to jump on board.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we put one out a year, and we really put our heart soul into it. I mean, you notice too with Coffin, like we're not busting out 20 titles a month. I mean, we're very selective, and we put a lot of effort into each page long before it ever becomes a comic. So thank you.
Yeah, and you're still going with the was it 3 a year that you're doing?
We do 4 Kickstarters a year. Okay. So what'll be coming up after Lady Death in August will be yet another Hell Witch, which is entitled Sacrilegious, and that's coming out in October. And that one's really fun because it takes place in hell, but it's a women in prison in hell story. So a lot of fun. If people have already read Hell Witch, and it is definitely R-rated, not for the squeamish, it's more of that. It's on steroids. So it's Hell Witch on steroids. And the story is called Sacrilegious.
Nice. And I like the way that you have the names on there and you get so into it. That energy is just exonerated every time you get up there and start talking about it. You can't just go up there and say sacrilegious. You have to sacrilegious. You have to really get into it.
It's funny, people in the office, like this last Lady Death is called Malevolent Decimation. It's very difficult for it to roll off people's tongue, but in my mind, it makes sense. Like the next one is called Treacherous Infamy. And then I could tell you next February 20, or probably March 2021, that'll be Lady Death Chapter 13. And that one is called Catastrophic Majesty. And my objective, at least for the Lady Death ones, is clearly it's got to be like a black metal record, or, you know, like a death metal record. It should sound like an epic heavy metal record album title. That's the goal for sure. With the quality of the title on La Muerta, it's different because, again, it's usually in the action milieu. You know, we've had names like Vengeance, Retaliation, that kind of stuff. And then with Hell Witch, every time it's a descriptor of her. So the first one was Hellborn. The second one was called The Forsaken. And then the third one is Sacrilegious. And it's a little bit of a descriptor of the character.
I like that. And it works for each one the way that you do it, because it's not taking away from anything. It's actually putting the right emphasis in the right places to go ahead and get more of the people interested in what's going on with that.
Yeah, we're trying to use keywords. A small example would be there was the 3rd chapter of Lady Death was called Extinction Express. And a lot of that story takes place in a train ride through hell. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we're trying with something like the upcoming Treacherous Infamy. We'd like to think that those are keywords that also kind of encapsulate the story, a bit of a descriptor for the story.
Now, how far out do you usually go ahead and write the stories on this?
We are broadly plotted in the most broadest terms, probably through, I think about 5 years. And we're specifically, so then the next level of detail would be out for about through 220, let's see here, about 3 years. And those are broad strokes. I mean, I really know where Lady Death's going up into her 50th anniversary, because I plan to tell that story. But and then right now, it's, as we sit the end of May, we're now working on the details of chapter 13, 14, which would be next February and next August. So, the broad direction is really mapped out, and now we're getting specific. And frequently, as is what's happening right now, there's a giant, we start with a plot, but then there's we put a ton of ingredients in, and then, a ton of ingredients are going to have to come out. So I'm in that, myself and Mike McLean are in that struggle of, okay, what stays and what goes? Because by design, the storyline in 2021 it's supposed to be the biggest thing we've ever done. I mean, by design, it's supposed to be Avengers Endgame style. That's it. We're introducing a zillion more characters. The main villain, who has been revealed already and who's developing, his name is Insurrectus. I mean, it goes global by 13 and 14, and it requires anyone with any kind of unnatural ability to come together to see if they could even possibly defeat this thing. And again, this is all taking Lady Death into the world of kind of those beautiful, great, old, giant company crossovers back in the day, like the Crisis on Infinite Earths or Secret Wars. And then I could tell you guys and gals out there, at the end of 2021, that's the end of that type of experiment. And as we go into 2022, the tonality in the scope and the scale changes dramatically. It'll be a very different book. But 13 and 14 in 2021, and even as we're building up this year, we're by design going for bigger scale, and then we're going to go.
And that makes a lot of sense to be able to do that, because you want to go ahead and have that build up on there, but you don't want to finish it off. You want to give that last little pop on there where it's you think you're hooked now. Wait till we go ahead and launch into this next one.
That's fun. I'm happy that people come along for the ride. I mean, my wife and I'll remind me all the time, everything that we do is just to tell a story. It's kind of crazy. It's strange, but true. All of this stuff, the crazy variations. I mean, I guess I would say the things I like most about what I do, and there's many, many elements that I adore, is the crazy fun promotions and the neat cover enhancements and the presentation of that material. And then really, working on the stories, telling the stories, putting the books together is really quite fun.
That sounds great with that. Brian, I could keep you up here all day long, but I'll go ahead and, if you want to go ahead, I'll give you full stage on here. If you want to go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you on La Muerta and jump on that if they have not already.
Well, folks, thanks for tuning in today. Thank you for your consideration. If you're interested in finding out more about what it is that I do and my team, simply go to coffincomics.com, and that is a gateway that'll take you to all the different places. Right now, we have La Muerta Retaliation on Kickstarter. So if you jumped on the Kickstarter, went into the search bar and typed in La Muerta, I think that campaign would come up. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the work, again, coffincomics.com, you could navigate, and we explain the whole rationale behind the Coffin Verse. We give you explanations of all the various characters. And on the current La Muerta Kickstarter, there are reward tiers where you can get caught up on the story, because we do keep the story in print. So thank you so much for your consideration, and thanks for your time today. I hope you guys had a good time, and I certainly love to speak, so I had a great time. Thank you.
Well, we definitely enjoyed having you here, and if you want to hang out in the green room for just a moment, I'm going to do my closing statement on here, and then I will get right here to you.
All right, thanks everybody for attending. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Brian Pulido is on here. Yeah, fangirling. I see that, and yes, that is very true. Thank you very much. I'm doing what I can to try to stay upright on this, and I think I did a pretty good job on that. So my closing statement is actually going to be something along those lines, which is, there's been a lot of talk about imposter syndrome. And I'll be honest, I've been kind of fighting with the symptoms on that and trying to figure out if I'm actually doing what I should be doing, if I'm doing it because I'm good at it, or I think I'm good at it, or I'm actually not good at it and I shouldn't be doing it. But then I get someone like Brian to come up here and go ahead and be a guest. Brian doesn't go ahead and be a guest on anybody's show just because they ask. He actually does some research on there, which is great that he does that. I do research on all of my guests that I bring on as well. So my point on this is, if you feel like you're not doing something the right way, if you feel like you're not good enough for something, push yourself harder. See what can come out of it. You never know unless you push yourself to the nth degree on what you can actually accomplish. Today, look what I accomplished. This has been amazing. Easily one of my top 3 that I always wanted to talk to and meet, and I actually get to meet him next year. So yes, I am a little excited on this one. So everyone have a great evening. I hope you enjoyed this. Share this thing out, and please get on the YouTube and follow that. We are so close to 1,000, and I have got one huge show planned in commemoration for making 1,000 on that. So other than that, I'll say keep it into y'all, and let's go ahead and finish it off with, oh yeah, Sworn, baby. Sworn. Y'all have a great evening.